Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 213, cover dated January 1987. So this cover requires no caption. It's Wolverine versus Sabretooth, round 2. Art here by Alan Davis and Paul Neary, who also handled the interior art of this issue. We're into this period between John Romita Jr.'s reign, and in some months' time, the title will get a permanent penciler in the form of Mark Silvestri, starting with issue 218. But for the moment, we're in this interregnum period of guest artists. And also the team is in the midst of a shake-up, and here in the corner box, we have the team's newest member, Psylocke, by the end of this issue. So really this is kind of an issue that focuses on her and what turns out to be her tryout for the team. So let's open this one up to the splash page, which features, appropriately enough, Betsy wearing the Cerebro helmet and using it to augment her mutant telepathy. So the title of the story is Psylocke, and the creative team is Chris Claremont, writer, Alan Davis, guest penciler, Paul Neary, guest inker, Tom Orzechowski, letterer, and Glynis Oliver, colorist. So Betsy says here in first-person thought dialogue that she's a stranger here, and we've seen that in the previous 2 issues of the title where she's appeared, not being a member of the X-Men, but assisting them with her powers, given the fact that the X-Men have no telepath now that Rachel has disappeared. And so we see her contacting Rogue, who is patrolling the boundaries of the X-Mansion and Domain, which we're told extend 3 miles along Breakstone, and it says lane here, but that's a mistake. It should be lake. This is the lake here, and a mile inland to Greymalkin Lane, all the way over this way. And so Psylocke's, this is also the first time that we see this butterfly effect for Psylocke's telepathy. And here it startles Rogue, who recognizes though that it's Psylocke. And Psylocke tells her that she needs some sleep, but Rogue responds, "Don't fret none, she's fine. And more importantly, this is the X-Men's home turf. Protecting it is the X-Men's responsibility." So Psylocke gets the message, and since I am not part of the team, not mine, my help will be tolerated, but only to a point. And then she goes beneath the 30 meters beneath the mansion to the infirmary, which is filled with injured Morlocks from the Massacre a couple of issues ago, but also 3 injured X-Men. So we've got Nightcrawler here, who is comatose, and Betsy says that she can't even perceive a flicker of awareness from him. Colossus is alert, but his body is completely paralyzed in his armored form. And then there's Kitty Pryde, and she's unable to make herself solid. And Psylocke here indicates that her discorporation is progressive. Eventually it will reach the state where she will cease to exist. Nothing tried thus far has even slowed the process down. She knows, yet she does not despair. And we see even, here's Lockheed keeping Kitty company. And something I want to note at this point is that Davis and Neary are using very, very, very fine lines in parts of the art. And here, obviously, it's appropriate for Kitty. But without the color, the fine lines aren't showing up terribly well. And this, I think, is an effect of the new flexographic printing process. It was notorious among the artists at the time for often not picking up very fine lines. And so Davis and Neary are coming from the British, the UK comics publishing scene. And I'd say when they got this issue back, they weren't entirely happy with some of the reproduction of their art. And you can see them adjusting to that in subsequent work for the American market and Marvel in particular. So let's continue. Betsy continues her telepathic survey of the X-Mansion, going through the rooms normally occupied by the New Mutants. They've disappeared. Everybody thinks they were in the Morlock tunnels when the Morlock tunnels were scoured by a tremendous wave of high energy plasma. That was Thor giving the corpses of the Morlocks, the slayed Morlocks, a Viking burial. But the X-Men don't know this, and they think that the New Mutants may be dead. And Psylocke thinks here about her adventure with the New Mutants, going back to New Mutants Annual #2, recently published, and a special relationship with Douglas Ramsey, Cypher, who risked his soul to save her from the clutches of another dimensional slave master. That's Mojo. And then we switch scenes to Manhattan and a mile beneath its streets to Morlock Alley. And we've got Wolverine, Storm, Magneto, and Callisto investigating the aftermath of the high plasma scouring of the tunnel. And Wolverine confirms the fire swept everything clean. I can't find even a trace of a scent, of anyone's scent. So Magneto isn't willing to concede that the New Mutants are dead, and Callisto is angry and demands from Storm, who did this? What did this? And Storm whispers in reply, lightning. And this gets Callisto's interest. What are you saying? When you and I fought upstate, that's in the previous issue, there was lightning flashing all over the place. Crazy like I've never seen before. And Storm contemplatively responds, I saw, I remember. Are you saying you're responsible for this? Callisto accuses her, and Storm replies that she doesn't know, because there was that lightning storm going on, and Storm is uncertain as to whether she has anything to do with it. Otherwise, she's depowered and has no conscious control over her former weather powers. At this point, Betsy intervenes and suggests to the four that she could size scan the entire country, possibly the hemisphere, for any sign of either the New Mutants or the Marauders. With Cerebro amplifying her own natural telepathic talent, she could penetrate virtually any psychic shielding. But the team, the leaders, Magneto and Storm, demur. As Storm says, we will take your proposal under advisement. Psylocke insists that she wants to help, but Storm tells her to do as she asks. And here, Storm and Wolverine confer, Wolverine saying, we could use her power. She means well, says Storm in reply, but she's too unknown, untested a quantity. These days we cannot afford any mistakes. I want no more bodies on my conscience. Better Elizabeth remains on the sidelines where she will be safe. So she's untested. Well, she's going to be tested very shortly in this issue. And the test starts here, where she gets a mind flash of a stranger entering the school grounds. So she determines to size scan to fix the intruder's location and identity. But there's a psychic backlash, and she's knocked unconscious to the ground. And then our scene switches to Los Angeles briefly. And here we've got Alison Blair, aka Dazzler, walking out by herself. And in the reflection of shopfront windows, she sees Malice wearing her Disco Dazzler guise. And Malice goads her, you're a star, Dazzler. Always were, always will be. To be, she says, to be all you can be, where's the harm? Do you really believe it's wrong to look like this instead of this? And Dazzler's in disguise, and incognito, playing with Lila Cheney's band. And she's persuaded by Malice. And she goes into this boutique shop and comes out dressed in the flashiest fashion possible. Great colours here by Glynis Oliver, indicating Dazzler's particular power to turn the sound of this disco-rama place into light, into a light show. So very garish mid-80s threads here. And then we go back to the X-Mansion, and we've got Rogue still on sentry duty, and she is blindsided from behind by this big hand here. And who does it turn out to be except for Sabretooth? And I like how Claremont is holding back from overfilling this little sequence here with any dialogue. Keeps it short and sweet. As Sabretooth says, "Bang baby doll, you dead." And the first time that we have Claremont use that particular phrasing, we'll see it many, many more times in subsequent years. A very particular Claremontism. But nice action sequence here. And I have seen some people question whether Sabretooth could really punch out Rogue like this. Rogue, you know, having absorbed the powers of Miss Marvel and being well nigh invulnerable, you know, super strong. How can Sabretooth punch her out like that? And something that Claremont had as part of his character story for Sabretooth was that most appearances of Sabretooth would be a clone. And sometimes, though, the original, he would show the original turn up. And so some readers infer that the great strength and skill of this Sabretooth indicates that it is the original here operating. And then we switch back to the X-Mansion and Psylocke coming to, and she puts on Cerebro again to alert the X-Men, but once again Sabretooth sneaks up on someone from behind and slashes the circuit board and computer screen with his claws. And she hits him with a Psychoblast, but he has clawed her arm. And she says, or she thinks here rather, she hurt him as he's getting caught in this electrical discharge. But she thinks, but I'm too weak, too groggy to properly fry his brain. So we're going to get a chase here where she runs from Sabretooth and he runs after her, smashing through the doorway. And she runs upstairs and she makes her way ultimately up to Storm's attic. But she's deliberately leading Sabretooth away from the infirmary under the X-Mansion. And Dr. McTaggart, Moira McTaggart, realizes this, and she asks that all access ways from the mansion to this complex be sealed. So Sharon Friedlander asks her why, and Moira explains, "Don't you see, she's leading him away from us, paying for our survival with her life." So she throws a barbell at Sabretooth. He catches it there and just like smashes it, bends it. So again, another indication, and throws it at her. Another indication of just how strong this Sabretooth is. So she is sent through the window and climbs up onto the roof, just keeping ahead of Sabretooth, but he knocks her through a skylight, and this is Ororo's attic. So she goes for one of Storm's knives mounted above the mantelpiece, but Sabretooth is just way too fast, punches her in the jaw and gets ready to rip her throat out. So great action sequence here, but who turns up in the nick of time? Wolverine, as he says to Sabretooth, "How about tackling somebody more your speed?" And Sabretooth responds, "I was wondering when you'd show Runt," and that he'd love to, but as soon as he's taking care of this business. And then Storm bops him right in the nose. He's got a break. She's got a have broken his nose there. And Psylocke gets away. She gets Psylocke away. And now we're going to get the rematch between Sabretooth and Wolverine. So Sabretooth draws blood and licks it off his nails. And you can see Wolverine not too happy here. Make a move. No, Sabretooth says, "You're going to play this straight boy or rabbit like last time," where Wolverine brought down the wall of the tunnel to separate them and get the Morlock healer to the mansion. And Wolverine responds, "Make a move, find out." Again here, the very, very, very fine lines by Neary and Davis, and really calling on Glynis Oliver to clarify the DeLuca effect here of Sabretooth somersaulting over Wolverine's striking with his claws. And as I said there, drawing blood, clawing his back. So then we get the fight, and it is incredibly violent. As the narrative captions make plain, they are the personification of violence, the darkest side of man's primeval nature brought to life. Quarter will not be asked between them, nor given. Another Claremontism here. And so their fight takes them across the rooftop of the X-Mansion and off the rooftop into the swimming pool in the garden. So nicely drawn here by Davis and Neary, of course. And then we have Magneto arrive, and he's getting ready to manacle Sabretooth, but Psylocke intervenes and says, "We know next to nothing about the Marauders. This is a perfect opportunity to learn." She says, "His psychic defenses," that's Sabretooth, are formidable. Under those conditions, they'll be fully active. If he's manacled and a prisoner, I doubt we'll learn a thing," she says. "But now his concentration is focused on his battle with Wolverine. I can slip into his mind," she says, "without him noticing." So this is it. And she insists that for all of their sakes, they at least need to let her try. So Storm concurs and says, "Do it." So here we go. And this is a great page here by Davis and Neary. So she calms herself, seeks serenity of body and mind. All pain will pass. Her physicality is but a vessel she leaves behind. As these two have so easily, so eagerly abandoned their humanity, their rage is matched by a terrible transcendent joy. They so love what they do. And Glynis Oliver here, using an old trick going all the way back to Uncanny X-Men 133, where she colours in the background blood red to indicate the bloodlust of these two bestial men fighting tooth and claw, literally tooth and claw. Wolverine headbutting Sabretooth in his busted nose again. That's gotta hurt. But the narrative captions also make plain that their injuries heal up. Sabretooth also has a healing factor, which means that he heals faster than a regular human. And Betsy then, when she's going into Sabretooth's mind, it's interesting, she sees Wolverine, much younger, tossed, broken and bloody on a snowscape. Here he is. And so this is hinting at their history together, which was also signaled in the previous issue, that they have a past history, even though the previous issue was the very first time they were shown together and fought together. And so Psylocke concludes they've fought before. And then she sees other faces, hears other voices from a much later time, Marauders, and here they are. And a shadow, all acknowledge as their master. And in the previous issue we learned that their boss's name is Mr. Sinister here. But she keeps probing deeper and deeper as the fight goes on. We see Sabretooth's busted up face here, the same with Wolverine, the contusions on their eyes. And they're battling all the way to the cliffs above Breakstone Lake, out through the whole forest. And like great fight choreography, but really what I'd like to see here is, you know, a double page spread of this fight. It deserves it. And just obviously Davis and Neary trying to fit in Claremont's script into the issue. But I like the way that in Uncanny X-Men 205, Barry Windsor-Smith was able to use the entire width of the page to show the fight between Lady Deathstrike and Wolverine. And really, I'm just craving that here, like a full horizontal panels all the way down this page would be really, really nice. So the fight reaches its climax. Sabretooth realizes that Psylocke has read his mind while he was distracted in the fight, and he's impressed, but he's determined not to be taken prisoner, so he jumps into the lake. Wolverine jumps after him, and Rogue flies down, shouting at him that he's a loon, doesn't he know when to quit? And she brings him up to the surface of the lake, and Sabretooth is gone. And the narrative caption reveals that they searched through the night without success, and the following morning, here they are. So Sabretooth is gone, he's made his escape, and the leaders decide that the X-Mansion is not defendable. Marauders will keep coming till they get us, says Wolverine, unless we nail them first. But we can't hit back effectively while we're forced to cover the wounded back here at the mansion. So Storm says it's a good point. They might well be safer at Dr. Moira McTaggart's research facility on Mer Isle in Scotland. Callisto agrees. And so we will see that occur in due course. And then Psylocke arrives up into Aurora's attic, which he's been setting straight after the fight, putting the pot plants back on the coffee table there, and the knife and staff back over the mantelpiece. And Wolverine here, with their backs turned, Wolverine says, "Ask me, she's proved herself, and then some. If it's what she wants, she's an X-Man." And here she arrives, complete with a new costume. It's very much what she wants, she says, if there are no objections. And just look at this smudge of ink here, just in the wrong place. And Storm says, if I can make it out, "Wolverine speaks for us all, Elizabeth. Welcome to the team." With Magneto and Callisto standing off. So this is the core of a new team now. Storm, Psylocke, Rogue, and Wolverine, with Colossus, Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler out. The letters here talking about issue 199, and there's a little tease for the Phoenix Limited series scripted by Claremont with art by Rick Leonardi and Dan Green, which never came out. And there you go. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 213. If you did, please like the video. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.